Chapter 2: The Unseen Connection. The first rays of dawn were a brutal assault on my eyes, even through the drawn blinds. I hadn't slept. How could I? The word murder echoed in my skull, chasing away any hope of peace. And not just murder, but by a creature of myth. A nine-tailed fox. My parents. Gone. For a book. The sheer, cold absurdity of it would have made me laugh if it didn't feel like my chest was being squeezed by an invisible hand. I sat hunched on my bed, the silver fox charm a cold knot in my palm. Felt heavier now, less like a quirky trinket and more like a brand. I stared at the ceiling, my mind a whirlwind of fragmented images. My parents' smiling faces, Aunt Clara's tear-streaked cheeks, Uncle Arthur's grim resolve. A nine-tailed fox. The legends I'd read as a kid always depicted them as cunning, powerful, malevolent spirits. I pictured something ancient, predatory, with eyes that burned with cold fire. My blood ran cold, but beneath it, a searing rage began to simmer. I had to find it. I had to make it pay. But how? Where did one even begin to hunt a creature from a bedtime story? Just as my thoughts spiraled into a vortex of frustration, a firm knock resonated at my door. "Finnian? Are you awake?" Uncle Arthur's voice, usually booming with cheer, was subdued. "Yeah, I'm awake," I mumbled, my voice rough. He entered, his gaze scanning the room, lingering on my still-clenched fist around the charm. He probably thought I was just grieving, though he couldn't possibly know the true earthquake that had just shattered my world. He sat on the edge of my bed, a heavy sigh escaping him. "Look, son," he began, his voice surprisingly gentle. "I know this is incredibly hard, but life and business goes on. We have a crucial meeting this morning with Seraphina Thorne." My mind, still locked on vengeful foxes, barely registered the name. "A meeting? Now? Uncle, I can't. Not after." I trailed off, the word murder catching in my throat. He placed a hand on my shoulder, a gesture that usually conveyed reassurance, but today felt like a lead weight. "Finnian, this is important. You are important. You're 18 now. It's time for you to start understanding the family business, to prepare to take over. This deal with Seraphina Thorne's company, it could define our future. She's a force of nature, a brilliant mind. I want you there. I want you to see how deals are made, to meet her. We need this, Finnian. And frankly," his voice softened further, a rare tremor in it, "I could use you there. Your parents, they would have wanted you to be strong, to keep moving forward." The mention of my parents, his quiet plea, hit me harder than any argument. He was right. They would have wanted me to be strong. And maybe, just maybe, this meeting would be a distraction, a brief respite from the overwhelming darkness. Or perhaps a way to sharpen my own mind for the battle to come. I wanted revenge, yes, but I also needed to function. And a family business was something tangible, something real in a world that had suddenly turned mythical. "Fine," I conceded, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. "Just give me a minute." The drive to the city center was a blur. Uncle Arthur, oblivious to my inner turmoil, prattled on about Seraphina Thorne's meteoric rise in the corporate world. "She's barely 30, Finn, and she's already built an empire. Sharp as a tack, incredibly intuitive. They say she can read a balance sheet like it's a novel. Always one step ahead, always makes the smartest moves. Her company handles rare artifacts, ancient documents, even specialized security. Top-tier stuff. Finn, if we can get this collaboration, it'll be huge." My stomach churned, a mix of anxiety and a growing, unwelcome curiosity. This was the most powerful businesswoman, the one my uncle had been raving about for months. And now I was going to meet her. The thought was jarringly normal, clashing with the supernatural terror that had consumed me hours earlier. We arrived at a sleek, minimalist office tower, a stark contrast to the comfortable, old-world charm of my parents' home. The meeting room was all glass and polished steel, overlooking the glittering cityscape. My uncle seemed to hum with nervous energy, repeatedly checking his watch. "She's always punctual, so she'll be here any minute." He continued his praise. "Honestly, Finn, she's an enigma. Started from nothing, built everything. Never seen anyone quite like her. She just has this presence." The door opened then, and the world seemed to tilt on its axis. Seraphina Thorne entered, and I forgot to breathe. She wasn't just beautiful, she was out of this world. Her hair, the color of moonlight on freshly fallen snow, cascaded around her shoulders, framing a face of ethereal perfection. Her eyes, deep pools of silver, held an ancient knowing that seemed to see right through me, yet offered no judgment. She moved with a fluid grace that defied the stiff formality of the boardroom, like a whisper of wind through an untouched forest. Her tailored suit in a deep, sophisticated emerald only accentuated her otherworldly elegance. Uncle Arthur, usually so composed, practically tripped over himself to greet her. "Miss Thorne, it's a pleasure, as always." "Arthur," she replied, her voice a soft melody yet carrying an undeniable authority. Her smile was subtle, like the first hint of dawn. She extended a hand to my uncle, and he clasped it with a reverence I'd never seen him show anyone. I stood there, rooted to the spot, utterly captivated. My carefully constructed mask of indifference, my simmering rage, all of it crumbled under the sheer weight of her presence. I couldn't tear my eyes away. "And this must be Finnian," she said, her gaze now turning to me. A shiver traced its way down my spine. Her silver eyes held mine, and for a fleeting second I felt an inexplicable warmth, a resonance deep within me, as if my very soul recognized something in hers. It was fleeting, a spark quickly extinguished by my own bewilderment. Uncle Arthur practically beamed. "Yes, this is my nephew, Finnian. My late brother's son. He's 18 now, and I'm keen for him to learn the ropes. Finnian, this is Seraphina Thorne." My mouth was dry. My throat felt constricted. I tried to speak, to utter a polite greeting, but nothing came out. Not a single word. I simply stared, lost in the silver depths of her eyes. She offered me a small, knowing smile, and I felt a blush creep up my neck. The meeting began, and my uncle launched into his presentation detailing our company's proposal. Seraphina listened, occasionally interjecting with sharp, insightful questions that left even my uncle nodding in admiration. But I barely registered the specifics. My mind was a chaotic symphony of observations. Her graceful hand movements, the way her hair caught the light, the subtle curve of her lips when she considered a point. I found myself obsessing over her eyes. Were they really silver? Or was it just the trick of the light? They seemed to shift, to hold endless depths. The nine-tailed fox I had envisioned, the monstrous killer, seemed to melt away, replaced by the captivating image of Seraphina Thorne. The need for revenge still simmered, a low, constant burn, but it was now overshadowed by a far more immediate, far more confusing, new obsession. The meeting concluded with a handshake and a verbal agreement for a new business collaboration. "Excellent," Uncle Arthur practically crowed, pumping her hand. "This is truly fantastic, Miss Thorne." Seraphina offered another of her subtle smiles. "I believe it will be mutually beneficial, Arthur." She glanced at me one last time, a hint of something unreadable in her silver eyes, before turning to leave. Walking out of that boardroom, my feet barely touched the ground. Uncle Arthur was ecstatic, already planning the next steps, completely unaware of the shift that had just occurred within me. "Can you believe it, Finn? We sealed the deal. Her company, Finn. This is huge." "Yeah," I managed, a dazed smile on my face. Huge. Because it was. Not just for the business, but for me. This meant I would see her again. Often. Back at home, the rage that had consumed me felt muted, distant. The silver fox charm still rested in my pocket, a silent, cold reminder of my true purpose, but my mind was elsewhere. It was fixated on Seraphina Thorne. She's really something, isn't she? Uncle Arthur mused later that evening. She is, I agreed, perhaps a little too eagerly. How old is she exactly? You said she built an empire at such a young age. He chuckled. Rumor has it she's in her late 20s, early 30s. Looks like it too. But she's got the wisdom of someone twice her age. Truly extraordinary. Extraordinary. The word didn't even begin to cover it. The idea of a monstrous fox had been replaced by the baffling, intoxicating image of Seraphina. My quest for vengeance hadn't vanished, but it had gained a stunning, unforeseen complication. The nine-tailed fox was still out there, somewhere. But now all I could think about were Seraphina Thorne's silver eyes.